Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Kate, and for today we are going to be doing another episode where I'll be interviewing our guests about their favorite movies of all time. And today I have two brand new guests, my friends Laughlin and Alyssa. Hey guys, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Howdy, thanks
Hi.
for having us.
Yeah, great to be here.
Oh, great to have you here. So we are going through each of your three favorite movies of all time. Alyssa, why don't we start with your number three favorite movie of all time? For your number three, we have Million Dollar Baby. What is it about this movie that makes it good enough to crack your top three?
Yeah, so I really like, aside from all of the amazing actors and actresses that take part in the film, I really enjoy that it brings femininity into a more masculine type of film, which is, athletics and sports related films. And it just kind of shows throughout the film the struggles of women and how they're seen as weaker, I guess, as the man. And that was kind of one of the biggest struggles that Hilary Swank's character had to do, was she had to really prove herself to Clint Eastwood's character for him to really kind of embrace her as a actual athlete, and that he would actually take her on as one of people he coaches.
Well, and with what you just said about Hilary Swank's character Maggie, when you look back at this movie, are you a fan of boxing movies or sports movies in general? And if so, do you think that that's something that really makes it stand out compared to other movies in that genre?
Yeah, so I actually am not usually really someone that is drawn to movies that are around sports. I think I like more of the storyline. I think kind of based off my picks, you'll see that I like following a character or characters, and seeing the development of the characters is something I enjoy about film. So yeah, it's interesting. It got me really interested in films like sports, so I feel like I kind of have the mentality, don't knock it before you try it now, because they can surprise you. But yeah, I think it is also different because I feel like movies with athletes are usually geared more towards the male as well. So I think there still is that kind of draw for me, that it's also different in the sense that it is following a female character. So I think, yeah, I think it's changed my outlook on movies surrounded around sports, but I think it's still, the draw is, it's kind of different for me. It's not really about that for me.
Well, and what it's also a movie by Clint Eastwood, not only as a leading star, but also as a director. And for you as an audience member, are you a fan of Clint Eastwood's work? And if so, would you say that this is probably one of, if not his best movie as a director?
Yeah, yeah, no, I really have enjoyed his work as director as well. Like, Gran Torino, I really love, and I love that his work, I feel, has resembled a lot of following characters and seeing character development, which is like what I said I like about it. And there are dark parts of the film, but there is somewhat of a happy ending, but there is still like usually a dark ending too, that teaches the character a lesson or helps build the character in a way. But yeah, it's very interesting. But I would say this movie has already a very big spot in my heart. So maybe there is a little bit of a bias. But yeah, I do think this is one of his best.
Well, and also, I mean, you kind of just answered one of my other questions about whether the performances are one of the best things. But looking back at it, just looking at all the great people in this movie, Eastwood, Hilary Swank, Morgan Freeman, Anthony Mackie, for this to be one of your favorite movies of all time, would you say it's a movie that kind of inspires you as an actor as well?
Yeah, I'd say so. There is like, it is very real, raw acting, it feels like. And just the work that Hilary Swank had to put in, just like building her body and like learning about boxing and kind of pushing her limits in that way. But also, it's such an emotional movie too. So she had to like push her limits emotionally as well. So yeah, just like, well, everyone involved. I mean, they all had to put in that work. So, and I love Morgan Freeman, having him as the narrator kind of was a great part of it too. And just having, I almost put in my top three. I don't know if I can mention another film that was really on there, but Shawshank Redemption. So I really do love Morgan Freeman. So that does help. But yeah, no, I was really just drawn by all the great acting, and it is very inspiring. Hilary Swank, it's been kind of talked about in the film industry that, she wasn't the generic or stereotypical beauty either. So, like, her also just being raw and kind of pushing that, even in the film, having more of a masculine look to her, and still like pushing that out as well, and like showing her beauty in that way, I think was really cool to watch.
But yeah, moving on to our next one, we have Laughlin's number three favorite movie of all time, and that is Midsommar. So, Laughlin, when it comes to Midsommar, just like I asked Alyssa at the beginning, what is it about this movie that makes it good enough to crack your top three?
Yeah, so I think just the camera and the shot composition and all of that is astonishing. And I think the way that they represent the hallucinogenics throughout the film and how they represented that through editing and special effects and all that was really cool. And then I really appreciated how the main character, I'm forgetting her name, but Florence Pugh's character was super in rough shape at the beginning. And just, I mean, her acting was so raw and visceral and just upsetting and moving in all the right and wrong ways. And I really appreciated just how dark and disturbing and twisted it was, but it wasn't like in your face the way a lot of horror is. And it was kind of just the psychological thriller aspects of it and the slow burn of just how disturbing and twisted this cult was really cool and really interesting.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that's unique about the film is that it's a horror movie that isn't stuffed with jump scares every 5 minutes of screen time. And if you look back at it, like you were saying, it's a lot more disturbing than it is scary. It's not just, jump scare, jump scare, jump scare. Instead, it just remains disturbing because it has such an unsettling atmosphere. And for you as an audience member, do you find that kind of refreshing?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's cathartic. I mean, I think that's a lot of what horror is kind of getting that blood flowing, juices pumping, kind of living out those primal alligator instinct kind of stuff. And I think it's kind of like those nightmares and the way your brain plays tricks on you, but put into I don't know, conceptualized. And so that's interesting, and I think I find that refreshing because it's a little more concrete and you're getting that adrenaline in proper doses.
Yeah, and it's also another film by A24. And are you a big fan of that company? And would you argue that this is one of their best movies?
Oh, definitely a big fan of A24. I love all their movies. I don't know that I've seen all of their movies, but I've tried to see most of them, and I think I've touched a vast majority of them. I really like their movies. Just, I mean, I think the production quality and I don't know, the motifs and themes in each of the films is so real and applicable to real life. It's relatable, it's all those words. And I really appreciate that. And yeah, I think it is kind of one of their top movies. I would say I don't know that it's their best movie of all time. I believe they did Hereditary as well. Yeah, and that one might top it. I don't know, but that one's a little too spooky for me.
Well, and it's funny that you say that because Midsommar and Hereditary are by the same director, Ari Aster, who also made Beau is Afraid. And, having seen his work, would you say that he's one of the best horror directors of our current time?
I think so. I think he has just a very different perspective. I don't know, and I don't watch a lot of Korean horror, but in a lot of the analysis videos and things that I've seen of Korean horror and Japanese horror and stuff like that is like the trippiness of it, for lack of a better word. And I think that Ari Aster definitely embodies that in an Americanized version, and I think that that's really interesting, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. But moving on to your second favorite movies of all time, Alyssa, your second favorite is none other than Forrest Gump. For this to be your second favorite movie of all time, would you say that this is a movie that you've loved your entire life?
Definitely. I think it's kind of the first movie that I really was like I want to rewatch and rewatch and keep just like I don't know, it really got me into film, I feel like. And it really has gotten me into also Tom Hanks, who has become one of my favorite actors. It really had me realize I enjoyed that actor, and it made me kind of look further into other films he had done. So that was really cool. But yeah, I think I've always said that that's one of my favorites ever since I was a young lad.
Well, and when you look back at the movie from a story perspective, and look at the life of Forrest Gump, what is it about the journey of this character that is so fun to follow? And what about it keeps you invested? Is it mainly because of Tom Hanks' performance, which he obviously won an Oscar for? Or do you also just really enjoy the character of Forrest Gump as well?
I think I really enjoy the character of Forrest Gump because he's so different and positive and he just has the energy to keep going. And we never really know like whether he appears to have a disability that is touched upon a little bit, but not really. It's like they call it things and like they talk about the IQ and stuff, but we don't really know if he has a disability or what it is, and you just kind of know that he's a little different. And I liked that we're not just following someone that thinks the same way that we do. It seems he has a different thought process, and I really enjoyed seeing a character have a different way of life and seeing how that progressed throughout his life, like his entire life, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and when it comes to Forrest Gump, I've often heard people discuss whether or not it's one of the greatest movies of all time. A lot of people think that it is. Some people think that it isn't. They think it's great, but it's not one of the best. When it comes to that debate, would you agree that it's one of the best movies of all time?
Yeah, I mean, because it is in my top three. It's hard not to feel that way. But yeah, no, I think it's just a great storyline. I think it gives hope to people, like to just keep going and that you can do different things in life. You don't have to stick with the same thing and you can learn and grow from that. And that there's just like heartbreak and stuff like that. And it's really moved me as an actress. Like, I wanted to like I used a monologue from the film to audition for a show because I just feel like it's so impactful of a movie. And so yeah, I think it's definitely a great in my mind.
Well, and actually, fun fact before we move on to Laughlin's second favorite, did you know that this movie was the reason why Tom Hanks was forced to turn down the part of Andy Dufresne in The Shawshank Redemption?
Oh,
Oh,
I
is that
didn't know
right?
that, but I would have loved to see Tom Hanks in that role. But I mean, I love that movie, so I don't know if
Yeah.
I'd want it to change at
I
all.
mean, the
But
actor anyway did a great job.
yeah.
Yeah, Tim Robbins was definitely great in Shawshank, but also I'm kind of glad that Tom Hanks didn't get the part because I don't know if I could picture anyone else as good as him in the role of Forrest Gump.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's also
absolutely.
very true.
But yeah, why don't we move on to Laughlin's second favorite movie of all time, and that is Pirates of the Caribbean. So, Laughlin, for this movie to be your second favorite movie of all time, is this also a movie that you've loved your entire life as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's similarly, I share that nostalgia aspect with it. I think, yeah, again, it was one of those movies that I just always wanted to put on and watch. And the soundtrack is amazing and all that. And I really just appreciate the twists and turns and the plot development and the world that it's in. It's based in reality and in fantasy. I just really, really like that. And I think Disney is like beloved by all, but then it gets a bad rap as well. And I think that this was like a nice balance of action, drama, and like accessible to kids and families. And I really like that.
Yeah, and also when you compare it to other adventure movies, maybe not just pirate films, but just adventure movies in general, what is it about this movie that makes it stand out against others? Is it the story, the characters, the creativity, or just the fact that it is a fun pirate movie?
Oh, I think it's got to be with the characters. I think like the complexities of Will Turner and Jack Sparrow and all that is so good, and the way they play off of one another, the straight man, comedic man thing is really funny, and I really like Johnny Depp's portrayal of Jack Sparrow. I think he does a fantastic job. I think the characters are really unique in that. I think while they follow similar archetypes and tropes and canons of classic, swashbuckler type movies, I think they're particularly elevated.
Well, and when it comes to Johnny Depp movies, people often rank either Edward Scissorhands or Donnie Brasco as their favorites. But, since this is your second favorite, I'm guessing you view it as much better than those movies.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I really like Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean as Jack Sparrow. I think he really does a really good job. And having just come off a cruise, I totally respect his absorption of the total sea leg type deal. It's such an interesting sensation. It's so funny because he's drunk, he's got the sea legs, and just that's, it could be either or.
Well, and with this movie specifically, when you look back at the entire franchise and all the sequels that came after it, a lot of people have mixed relations with the rest of the movies, but where do they sit with you?
Yeah, the rest of the movies are, I think they kind of taper off. It's a slow, kind of decline. But I think that's a similar trajectory to most movies. I mean, when you start making five, six of the films, it's starting to get into just milking it territory. And I think you can only do the story so many times, and I think that the first one really kicked ass, and then the second one was really good as well, and then I like the third one, but I don't watch that one nearly as often as the first and second. And I think that's probably shared by many.
Yeah, I understand. But why don't we move on to both of your favorite movies of all time? Alyssa, your number one is none other than Joker. So before we really get into this one, my first question I have to ask is, are you a fan of Batman in general and just the whole mythology built around him?
Well, in all honesty, not really. I mean, I do love Lego Batman, but that's kind of its own thing. Um, but yeah, no, I'm really not a huge fan of the Batman films, but I do love Joker.
So what is it about this movie that makes it your favorite film of all time?
I think there's a lot of aspects of the film. I think it's the movement, the music, the acting, the storyline about mental illness, the character development. Like I've said, I really enjoy watching a storyline like that. Yeah, I just think it's really impactful and I think it's really well done. I love it.
Well, and one thing that I know was often debated about this movie is the fact that it was an origin story for the Joker, because one aspect about the character that people often love is that he generally doesn't have a clear origin story. But for you, do you agree with that in any way, or do you think that you were more accepting of it because of the fact that this was more of a standalone story?
I think I was more accepting of it because it's a standalone story, and also maybe because I'm not as into the other films of like Batman, so maybe it's just easier for me to overlook that. But yeah, no, I enjoyed that it gave Joker an origin story, and I think it's something that made it different than all the other Batman Joker films is that it did give a backstory, which, like I said, I like that about a film. So I think I'm glad that it kind of gave a backstory to the Joker, but I also think of it as kind of like a multiverse in a way. Like, maybe this isn't another Joker's like Heath Ledger Joker's backstory. Maybe Heath Ledger's has a different backstory, kind of that. But maybe that's because it's kind of fresh because there is this whole multiverse going on in film. So maybe that's why I think of it like that. But I sort of do feel like it's like that in my mind.
Well, and actually, speaking of Heath Ledger, and here's a question I actually have for both of you. So, in this movie, Joaquin Phoenix obviously gave an incredible performance as the Joker. And would you argue that it rivals Heath Ledger's, which is often regarded as the definitive version of the Joker?
Like I said, I think it's just like not even a rival in my mind because I think it is just such a separate film and multiverse in my mind. But like, yeah, I think, yeah, I can't even compare the two in my
Mm.
mind.
Yeah, I think Joaquin Phoenix's version was grounded so much in reality that it kind of almost took away from the superhero, supernatural type aspects of the Batman universe. And I think I appreciated the character and the grandiose grandiosity of Heath Ledger's performance. So I think they are separate, but I don't know. I might have to go with Heath on this one.
Well, and actually, one last question that I wanted to ask before we move on to Laughlin's favorite. So, Alyssa, when you look at this movie, are you looking forward to the sequel to the Joker movie that's coming out this year, or would you have preferred that this movie remain a standalone?
I am really looking forward to it, but I am a little concerned where it's going. Like, I just don't know what it's even gonna be like because in my mind, kind of thought it was a standalone, just an origin story kind of thing. So I'm interested to see where it's gonna go from here and what the timeline's gonna look like and what characters might be introduced. And yeah, and also I hear Lady Gaga's in there. So that's gonna be interesting. I just finished watching this A Star is Born, and so I liked her performance in that. I don't know what it will be like in Joker because obviously it's very different content, but I'm excited to see.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, why don't we move on to Laughlin's favorite movie of all time, and that is Django Unchained. So, Laughlin, what about this movie makes it your favorite movie of all time?
Yeah, I didn't think I was much of a fan of westerns, but I think I am the more I think about it. And yeah, I feel like I haven't seen that many of them, but I do find myself drawn to them. And although Indiana Jones isn't much of a western, I have a soft spot in my heart for Indiana Jones and all that. And it's got, cowboy aspects to it. I think Django, what draws me to that one is it's again one of those movies that I watch over and over again. And I just think the story is fantastic. And again, it's grounded in reality and it's so authentic and genuine. And all the performances are fantastic. I mean, there's that scene where Leonardo DiCaprio, cuts his hand open. Everybody knows it. That's just so real, and I appreciate that acting in the movie because it makes me think of, that's what acting is.
Well, and of all the westerns that you've seen, would you argue that this is definitely one of the greatest westerns of all time? And also, what is it about the story of this movie that keeps you so invested as an audience member?
Yeah, I think it's like this, underdog story, and just the fact that he's a freed slave, and the whole complexities of navigating racism and everything like that, and I mean caste systems almost just on between him and his fellow folks and all that, and it's very interesting, and I think that Dr. Schwartz or whatever his
Dr.
name.
Schultz. Yep, Dr.
Dr.
Schultz.
Schultz, that's it. Yeah. I think he is fantastic and he does a really good job of the mentorship and it's like fatherly friendship mentor. I mean, it's a sensei type situation and I really appreciate that. Also Quentin Tarantino does a great job of making a saga a total epic and really keeps you hooked throughout the whole thing. I think the violence and the allusions to how it was back in the day is really raw and eye opening.
Well, and obviously, since it's your favorite movie of all time, I'm guessing that it's also your favorite Tarantino movie of all time, right?
Yes, definitely. But maybe it's because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is fresh in my brain, or I just really appreciate the hippie era. I just love that movie. So I think that's a close second.
Well, and also when it comes to movies like Pulp Fiction, that is often regarded as his best movie of all time. But when you compare this movie to Pulp Fiction, what do you think makes it better?
That's a good question. Honestly, it might have to just do with the Western country aspect. And the time period. I honestly just appreciate a period piece.
Well, and also one of the best things about the movie is definitely the cast and characters. And when you look back at it, aside from Christoph Waltz as King Schultz and Leo DiCaprio as Calvin Candy, are there any characters and performances that really stand out for you the most, or maybe inspire you as an actor as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think just Leonardo DiCaprio's performance and the complexity of good guy, bad guy kind of is very interesting. And I think the way he kind of masks all that and his subtlety in his performance is really interesting. And I appreciate that. And I mean, I think any of Leonardo DiCaprio's work is inspiring to me and my work. So I definitely appreciated his performance.
Yeah, cool. All right, guys. I think that's the end of this interview. Thanks so much for listening. Laughlin, Elyssa, thanks so much for being here.
Thank
Yeah, thank
you.
you, Cade. Glad to be here.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you later.